And hello everyone, my name is Daniel Frierson, welcome back to the channel. Just over 4 days ago now, I found an ad on Facebook Marketplace promising me 10, if not more, free computers. The images in the listing only showed me Dell Optiplexes, so I was quite surprised when I arrived and found 15 computers on a pallet ready to go, as well as 3 TVs. I don't know what to do with these, but hey, TVs are TVs, you can use them as monitors if you're on a budget, and they were free. One of them's actually 1080p, the other two are 1366 by 768, so I don't care about them. But hey, free computers are free computers, and free tech is free tech. I'm not going to complain. So let's see what we have, see what works, and see if we can do anything with any of it. So with those TVs out of the way, we can finally see the bulk of what I managed to pick up for free last weekend. And yeah, I was quite surprised that there were actually any PCs at all when I arrived. And meeting a guy in a storage locker on the south of the Thames River is something I've never done before, but now I've done it once, I'm sure I'll never do it again. But anyway, computers! And quite a few interesting ones. You'll see why soon enough, but here's the thing, that's a wireless keyboard for this Sony VAIO all-in-one PC. Yeah, a Sony VAIO all-in-one PC. One that I can't find any information about online. I've googled its model number to no end, and all I keep finding are Sony VAIO laptops. I can't find information about this machine online anywhere. So I don't know what resolution it is, what chipset it's on, what CPU's in there. I can tell you it has 2 gigs of DDR2, and the sticker on the front says Core 2 Duo. I don't know anything else about this machine. So I am very intrigued to see if this one still works, because I just want to know what's inside it. Additionally, yes, this is a wireless keyboard that goes to that machine. Not a bad one, to be honest. It feels pretty good, though very early 2000s laptop good. This is very much not a desktop keyboard feel. That being said, these are fairly expensive. They were sold with a wide variety of PCs, not just this one, and having one is actually pretty good for me, though I don't know if it's going to work because the batteries have leaked. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to cleaning that up, but hey, if that's the only thing wrong with this, and it works when I put fresh batteries in it after I've cleaned it up, I'll be happy. Now, you can immediately see the bulk of the PCs I picked up were Dell Optiplexes, and you might be thinking those aren't worth spending any time or money on, but think again. While this top one here, which is hidden by other machines I know, is on 3rd gen Intel CPUs, so okay, it's pretty old, there are 4 Haswell Optiplexes in this pile. Now that would be 4th gen Intel. Now 4th gen Intel machines, especially if you go with an i7 rather than an i5 or an i3, are more than capable of running modern Windows, modern internet browsing, modern office tasks, and still gaming to an extent, though with these being small form factor machines you are pretty limited on what kind of graphics card you can put in these, so I don't expect to turn any of these into gaming rigs. But the 2 Dell Optiplexes on the bottom of this pile, they're 6th gen Skylake Optiplexes. Yeah, 6th gen Skylake. Now they're only on a H110 chipset, and they only support DDR3L memory. Yeah, these are DDR3 6th gen systems. Skylake does technically support DDR3, though not a lot of desktop PCs came out with DDR3 support. That being said, the fact that these are on DDR3 and they're 6th gen means that you can have 6th gen performance with affordable RAM, which does interest me, and I want to see what I can do with these machines if they even work. I don't know if any of this works. I was told that it should work. The only thing that the guy I picked these up from has done to these machines is he's removed the RAM and the hard drives. Now, he removed the hard drives because all of these machines used to belong to a solicitor's office, or law firm if you're outside of the UK. So, yeah, all of these came from a solicitor's office. How the hell did I get my hands on them? As I said, I answered a Facebook Marketplace ad and met a guy at a storage locker. Now, that guy was this solicitor's office's IT technician. He kept all the machines updated, he installed new ones, and made sure everything worked. 1 or 2 years ago, when that solicitor's office needed to upgrade to Windows 11 compliant machines, they decided they didn't want desktops anymore, and they just moved to high-powered Windows 11 equipped laptops. Which is a choice, but that did mean that this IT technician I met not only had dozens of PCs he now needed to find a use for, or recycle, or sell, and that's how I got a hold of these ones, by the way, because he gave up on the recycling and the selling and just started giving them away. But he also had dozens upon dozens of desktop monitors that the solicitor's office no longer wanted or needed. Now, unfortunately, he wasn't giving any of those away for free, because all of them were 24-inch 1440p monitors. I would have very much liked some of those, but I couldn't afford his prices. So yes, none of these machines have RAM in them, except for the VAIO, and none of these machines have hard drives in them, except for this one up here. But that doesn't mean that I can't get these working. I have RAM, I have hard drives, I have SSDs. Now, speaking of RAM, hard drives, and SSDs, let's get on to talking about this. This, I believe, is someone's old gaming rig. I was told this didn't come from the solicitor's office, that this had been given to the IT technician I met, and he didn't know anything about it. I've taken a good look through this side panel, and I can tell you 3 things. It has 8 GB of DDR2 memory in there, it has a 9800 GT, and it has a hard drive. Yeah, it still has the hard drive. Now, the hard drive is date-coded 2010, so I'm expecting this to be a 5400 RPM 500 gig drive at best, and this machine might have Windows 7 on it. I don't know, I haven't powered this up yet. Aside from that, it is on an LGA 775 platform. It's an Intel motherboard. It's about as OEM can get, and I don't know what CPU's in here. So I am very interested to find out what's going on with this machine, and what's on it, to be honest, because if it still has a working Windows OS, just out of intrigue, I'd like to know what this machine was being used for before it was given to me. Okay, fine, let's finally get into the elephant in the room, which is that fly flying around. Could you go away? This is a fairly decent camera on my phone, so I'm pretty sure it's picked that fly up a few times. Let's talk about these mini PCs. Each of these mini PCs are Intel Celeron equipped quad-core 2.7 GHz devices with 8 gigs of LPDDR4 RAM. So, yeah, low-power DDR4 RAM soldered to the chip. There is no way to upgrade the RAM on these devices. Now, these devices, yeah, okay, quad-core Celerons, 2.7 GHz, only 8 gigs, not exactly the fastest mini machines out there. It's no AMD Ryzen U class CPU that has decent integrated graphics that you can actually game on. But that being said, these are Skylake era Celerons. So, yeah, okay, 2.7 GHz, but they are fairly fast CPUs, even at those low clock speeds. And the low clock speeds are purely down to the fact that these CPUs are limited to 10 watts. Yeah, 10 watts in these things, that's not amazing. Though it does mean that the power bricks for these guys are tiny. They're rated for 40 watts of power draw total. That includes the fan, the RAM, all of the other peripherals, as well as the SSD or hard drive you put in here. It's effectively a low-powered laptop in a box. Now, what interests me most about these machines is they have M.2 slots, so NVMe support. Looking at the spec sheet for this CPU, it only supports PCIe 2.0, because this CPU is a very low-class CPU, but the fact that this machine is equipped with NVMe, and the fact that you can use NVMe or a hard drive, or both at the same time, what would happen if I plugged in one of those PCIe to M.2 adapters and actually ran a real graphics card off one of these guys? I don't know. So I'll be putting these machines to one side and testing them at a later date. I mean, I do have 6 of them, and they are all identical. Yeah, they came from different brands, but I'm pretty sure this is just a Chinese rebrand issue here, that these probably all came from the same supplier. They all have the identical motherboards inside of them. The chassis are a little bit different, but they were all spec'd the same, and they are all identical as far as I can tell. So I don't know what to do with these right now, but in the future I do have some ideas. Granted, I'm pretty sure any modern mini PC running a Ryzen processor with a decent integrated GPU is going to kick this thing's ass, but these were free. I just want to see what I can do with them, so that's a video for a later date. So now that we've gone through everything I picked up a few days ago, shall we plug something in and see if it works? I have it on good authority it did at least 2 years ago, so let's find out. So now, since I don't want this video to be over 2 hours long, let's just focus on one machine for today, and that machine will be this Sony VAIO. Specifically because I don't know anything about it. As I said, Googling this thing's model number has not revealed any details about the machine. I can't even find any review article about this machine anywhere online. I've managed to find a few pictures about it, but I can't find any prices, any specs, anything. It's as if this machine never existed. But the fact that it does means that it did. So shall we plug this in, turn it on, see what it does? I'm hopeful. I just found the power adapter for this thing, and it's 150 watts. This is effectively a desktop variant of a 2009 laptop. I cannot for the life of me imagine that whatever display and speakers are in here means that this thing uses 80 watts more than a high-powered laptop of the era. So there is probably a GPU in here. How else do you explain 150 watts? Because there's no battery to charge, so you don't need to add 30 to 40 watts more than the actual power draw to charge a battery. What the hell does this thing need 150 watts for? And this is the original power brick. So what could possibly be in here that needs 150 watts? So apparently to plug this thing in, I actually have to remove the back of it. Oh, okay, sure. And here's our model number, which is PCG282M. Googling that has not helped me, but I can tell you this originally came with Windows Vista Home Premium. That's an OEM certificate there, so interesting. There isn't a maximum power rating on the model number here. This does have Wi-Fi. Cool. And it has integrated cable management. Whoa! AV input. As well as a TV tuner, by the looks of it. Can you use this as a TV? Like, AV input means that you can actually use this as a TV when the computer isn't in use. Like, you remember the maximum... Do you know the average complaint for most iMac users? It's that you can't use the iMac as a display when the computer breaks or it becomes obsolete. You just can't use it as a monitor. iMacs have really good displays in them, but as soon as the PC inside is no longer fast enough to keep up, that display is attached to a dead piece of hardware. But this one, which is probably 720p, maybe 1366 by 768, has AV input and S-video output, which is interesting. It has S-video output. It doesn't have any other kind of video output, so you can't attach a second display to this any other way. Which is an interesting choice, to be honest. Most all-in-ones allow you to plug in a secondary display. But, okay. No secondary monitor, I guess. Let's find out. Do you turn on? Green light. Oh, that's not on camera. Okay. That's a decent looking display. What the hell? What panel is this? Okay, hard drive activity light. Operating system not found. We have a glow on the Sony logo, which is an interesting choice, Sony, well done. And this display, what panel is this? This is definitely an LCD, but this isn't a TN panel. This might be VA. I would be very surprised if this is an IPS panel. But that looks way too good to be a TN panel. That has to be VA. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just curious. I will use this typewriter pink one. This is my sister's old keyboard. I still have it. I want a pink keyboard for my PC. Really? Do you know how expensive pink is? Given that my sister is a woman, I'm sure she's familiar with the pink tax, right? Control-Alt-Delete. Okay, that worked. Can we get into the BIOS? I want to know what CPU we have. Okay, delete doesn't get us into the BIOS. Is it F2, F5? It's probably F10, but we will find out. Okay. Right. This thing supports 2 hard drives. Really? System date 2007. Is this machine older than I thought it was? Voice processor, so that has to be a microphone, right? It doesn't tell me what CPU I have. Security, there is no password. Yay! I hate those passwords. Okay, so this really doesn't tell me anything. I have absolutely no idea what CPU we have. All I can tell is that we definitely have 2 gigs of RAM. Okay. VCG LM1M. That's an interesting machine name. Does Googling that tell me anything? Sadly, no, that did not bring up anything helpful, but okay, interesting enough. Let's, what do I want to do with this thing? I want to find out what CPU's in here, definitely. I want to find out what CPU it has. Thankfully, this machine does have a DVD drive, so let's put in a copy of Hiren's and see if that can help me. Why exactly is Hiren's loading Windows 10? Did I mislabel that CD? Let me try a different Hiren's CD. Because I definitely have Hiren's somewhere. Hello, Hiren's. Okay. That is not a very fast DVD drive. That is a pathetically slow DVD drive. Right, so we do have some information about our CPU straight away, that it's at 2.2 gigahertz. That doesn't really tell me anything else though, but 2.2 gigahertz, that is a number. Let's see what we have in our system profiler here. Summary, what do we have? We have a Core 2 Duo T7500. Okay. We have a 1440 by 900p screen. Not bad. We do not know what GPU we're using. Interesting. No information about our GPU, are you serious? We have an 8400 GT. Okay. A 256 meg 8400 GT. Not bad. We're not detecting any temperature sensors. That's interesting. But that doesn't matter right now. The fact that we have a T7500 and an 8400 GT means that I need to think about a few things. I need to take this machine apart. Okay. This machine has an actual graphics card in it that may or may not be in an MXM slot. I'm taking this thing apart. Yes. Okay, that's what we're doing now. We're taking it apart. I want to know what's inside this thing. I want to know what chipset it's on. I want to know if that GPU is in fact on an MXM slot, because if it is, it can be upgraded. And I need to put a hard drive in this so I can actually run a few tests. So, alright then, what's hiding inside this machine? I want to know what is hiding inside this machine. Well, here's our RAM. Yep, definitely 2 gigs of RAM. DDR2 555. This is very hot in here, to be honest. What's going on? Oh, very hot. Okay. Might have an issue with our CPU cooler. What is this? This looks like an expansion port that's been covered up. Subwoofer. Okay, didn't notice that before. Okay, as far as I can tell, that's all the screws, so... Well, that was pretty easy. Oh, good lord. That's a bit more involved than I was expecting. Right, what do we see here? This thing is designed for a 3¼ inch hard drive. Definitely. Okay. What else are we seeing? Speakers. A fan. A massive heatsink that is very hot. Is there a fan on that heatsink? I can't tell right now. So, first of all, I need to remove this somehow. That's in the way. This is going to be a very involved disassembly. Huh. All I want to do is get down to the motherboard. I was not expecting it to be covered in quite so much mounting hardware. Hopefully, I am not wasting my time here. Oh, hello. We have some movement. Fair amount of movement, in fact. Okay. Let's see what we can do about that. Who designed this thing? Because I suddenly hate you. We are now being held in by cables. Haha! What is that? It is just labelled B. Sure, label it B. What does that mean? Well, we have access to the board now, so that does help. I can see the CPU underneath here. Great big heatsink for it. Cool. Okay, let's get this RF shielding out the way. Then I can figure out what's happening in here. And one giant sheet of RF shielding removed. What is this, a Dreamcast? Giving us access to our Wi-Fi adapter, whatever the hell that is, whatever the hell this is. This is probably a TV tuner. I don't want to touch that then. What is underneath you, I wonder? That's where the BIOS battery lives. Okay, cool. I don't need to remove that. That's not anything relevant to what I'm trying to do right now. But seriously though, what is this port? It just says B. Is there an A? I don't see an A. Actually, I do see an A. I do see an A. It's the TV tuner. Which means this is some kind of PCI port. Interesting. I'm still not seeing anywhere that you could have plugged in a second hard drive, despite the fact the BIOS is configured to expect a second hard drive. So I was hoping it would have been mSATA, but I'm not seeing any mSATA ports. Well, other than the mPCIe that's running the Wi-Fi. I'm also not seeing anything that would make me think this thing has a power draw of 150 watts. So what are you covering? You are covering various power phases. The display, I'm assuming? Okay. Nothing that I actually needed to uncover. Fine. It's the first time I've ever taken apart a machine like this. The odds of me putting it back together correctly, fairly slim. CPU time. A random piece of plastic. That's helpful. And there's our GPU. Integrated. Well, thank you, Tech Power Up, for lying to me. Actually, no, wait. What is this? What are you? The chipset. Well, with crusty thermal paste like that, no wonder this thing was getting hot. Found it. Yep, that didn't take long, actually. That was a very easy motherboard schematic to find. Okay, so there's no hope of upgrading this to the Core 2 Quad, as the front side bus cannot go above 800 MHz. That's a shame. So we will just be doing the thermal paste replacement here. Okay, we're just getting a flashing green light. I'm going to assume that means it doesn't like the CPU. Whoa! That fan is not spinning. The fan didn't spin at any point, and that is stupidly hot. I'm going to put the original CPU back in and see if this fan is even working. Okay, I saw it try to move. This fan is spinning. And yes, the system is on. I want to see that fan spin. I'm going to sit here until that fan spins. There's a loose screw. Okay. Spin, damn you. I'm sitting here until that fan spins. Okay, there it goes. It's not moving that much air, but it is definitely keeping the thing cool. So, good enough, I guess. Okay, back in one piece. Now, before I close it up, let's upgrade this RAM. What do I have in terms of DDR2 right now? This is DDR2 555, so another 1 gig. I have a 2 gig, but it's 666. I have another 2 gig of 666, and I have another 2 gig of 555. Okay, let's see if we can get 3 gigs of 555 to work. I'll run memtest and see what it says. If it passes memtest, then I will leave it as is. I don't really think upgrading this to 4 gigs is going to be worth it, because Windows XP 32-bit is going to limit that to 3 point something gigs anyway. And no, I'm not putting 64-bit Windows XP on here because that's not even Windows XP. It's a Windows XP skinned version of Windows NT 4. That is not Windows XP. Hello, hello, Hirons. Can we please run memtest? Oh dear. Yep, that's not good RAM. Yeah, it does appear to just be one stick. What are the odds I get lucky and that's the stick I'm about to remove? Okay, still works. Good. Okay. It was this stick. I'll have to add this poor little stick of 2GB DDR2 to the bad pile. With the other 2GB stick. Oh well, 3 gigs is better than 2, and it is at DDR2 666, so better than nothing. Welcome to Windows XP Setup. Setup did not find any hard disk drives. Oh no! We might have to install Windows 7 again. Hey, Windows 7. Okay, UK please, install. And install Windows 7. Simple as that. If only every machine would install Windows 7 first try. Life would really be much easier. Well, the sound works. Do we have any driver issues? I mean, almost certainly we have driver issues, but we can fix those soon enough. Okay. We are missing multimedia controller, mass storage controller, and an unknown device. Okay, so much like that laptop that I've been working on recently, I'm going to do all of this off camera because it's going to take me hours, and I'd rather not just have hours of footage that I'm going to throw away. There's no point recording it in the first place. If something interesting happens, I will hit record, but this is mostly just going to be me installing updates and applications. And it's going to take a long time. Alright then, so it's 24 hours later, and if you're wondering how it could possibly take 24 hours for me to set up Windows 7 and install updates and games, blame a combination of driver issues and my internet. Yeah, interesting thing happened. I installed all the drivers for this device, and then it suddenly started blue screening. Now, I eventually tracked that down to the driver for the Wi-Fi modem. So I uninstalled the driver for the Wi-Fi modem, and then suddenly Windows 7 was like, no, I don't understand what Wi-Fi is anymore. Even using an external USB Wi-Fi dongle stopped working. So I tracked down separate Wi-Fi drivers for this TP-Link USB device, and I got this working, but I can't get the internal Wi-Fi working on this machine anymore. Something's happened to it, or maybe the drivers on Windows 7 just said F you, I don't know. So that was fun, but having an issue like that did give me plenty of time to work on the keyboard, which does in fact work now. So, after a lot of scrubbing, and I do mean a lot of scrubbing, thankfully the battery terminals are very easy to remove from this keyboard, and none of the alkaline mixture in the batteries had gotten to any of the circuit boards inside of here, but it did take me a few hours to get this thing working again. But hey, a few hours of scrubbing and a few new batteries, and this keyboard not only turns on, but it can control the PC even when it's asleep. Having done a lot of Googling between the previous bit of footage and this bit of footage, I've managed to track down some promotional information about this PC. Now, I can't find any information about this 19-inch model, but I did find information about the 22-inch model. The 22-inch model launched in October of 2007 for $3,000 US. However, the 22-inch model had a slightly better GPU. This is only a 128 megabyte 8400M, despite the fact that the Linux ISO I launched earlier showed me 256 meg, which confused me, but it's only 128 meg. Why is the display still not on? Come on. There it is. Now, 128 meg is a bit disappointing for this resolution. Not many games that this graphics card is actually powerful enough to run are going to be able to run at native res with only 128 megs of RAM. But I will try. I've launched some games. I've installed some games, so it will be possible. However, the 22-inch model, as standard for $3,000 US, came with a 1680 by 1050 display, which is more or less 1080p. It also came with an infrared remote, as well as a wireless mouse to go with the wireless keyboard. I sadly don't have that remote or that mouse. So, okay, this isn't a fully featured machine. We are missing the infrared remote. On the topic of the infrared remote, I can't get the drivers for the integrated TV tuner, the very high frequency tuner on the back of this machine, to work. Now, Windows is able to detect that there is that device in there, but I can't get the drivers to work with Windows 7, if I've even found the right drivers. Mind you, it's very possible I found the wrong device. Finding any information for anything in this machine has been quite the challenge, but that being said, everything else is working. Now, this might be a 19-year-old machine later this year, but that doesn't mean it's completely unusable. Okay, fine, we only have 3 gigabytes of DDR2 memory in here right now, and I could probably put 4 gigs in here if I salvaged the RAM out of that Toshiba, but we're not putting 4 gigs of RAM in here because it really doesn't need it, and I don't think it matters. The major limitation about this machine is honestly the CPU. Now, with this being limited to more or less the 65 nanometer mobile Core 2 Duos, I don't have a 45 nanometer one to test. The only 45 nanometer Core 2 I have is that Core 2 Quad, which is architecturally incompatible with this machine. But with this being limited to 65 nanometer Core 2 Duos, the fastest Core 2 Duo you can put in here is the 2.8 GHz Core 2 Extreme X7900. Now, that CPU, yeah, okay, it's 600 megahertz faster than the one that's in here right now, but it's the same architecture. It's still only 2 cores. Like, it's not gonna be the performance uplift you need it to be. Now, obviously, right now, this thing has a 500 gigabyte spinning hard drive in it. If I upgraded it to an SSD and actually tried to put Windows 10 on this machine, it would work, but it would not be anywhere near as efficient as Windows 7. Now, to show you what this machine can do, let's browse the internet for a little while. So let's do something as simple as just going to YouTube. Let's just go to YouTube. YouTube.com, and let's see, it loads in a reasonable amount of time. Like, this is slow, but it works. Like, we're getting all of our thumbnails loaded as we're scrolling. Like, it is working. So that's fun. And if we go to my own YouTube channel here and launch up, same as before, we are running at 1080p. Now, obviously, I can't show you any of the audio right now because this is a copyrighted music track, but good God, do the speakers in this display really hold up. 19 years old doesn't mean anything in the world of speakers. Like, the speakers I use in my hi-fi are 40 years old, and they sound amazing. But this thing, the integrated sound in this device is really impressive, and that makes sense because from the promotional information I've been able to find, this was sold as a media PC. The 22-inch model of this machine came with a Blu-ray drive, which in 2007, well, that kind of explains the $3,000 price tag. That's right at the launch of Blu-ray. But the 22-inch display, which was almost 1080p, came with a Blu-ray drive. Now, it did only come with Windows Vista, and Blu-ray on Windows Vista was a hot mess. But if you had upgraded it to Windows 7 a couple years later, this machine would have been perfect for watching early Blu-rays and 1080p movies. Like, this machine, the display holds up. Like, this display, yeah, okay, the one I'm looking at is only 900p, but it's a really high quality display. Sony obviously put a decent panel in this when they were designing it, and the speakers, my god, the bass on this machine, like, obviously when we took it apart, we saw that a good 50% of the internal space is being taken up by the subwoofer, but the quality of the front-facing speakers honestly surprised me. Now, that being said, just because it can play YouTube doesn't mean it's going to be a suitable daily driver anymore. The absolute limit of what this machine can reasonably do in 2026 is answer emails, run Microsoft Office, and play music. I don't think you're going to be doing anything highly intensive on this machine, and, well, it was a media PC when it was new. I think watching movies is realistically the only use this machine has anymore. But it does have a dedicated graphics card, albeit a slightly hampered one with only half the memory of its usual counterparts. That being said, it should be able to game. I have overclocked this machine. At stock speeds, the graphics card runs at 450 MHz, the memory runs at 600. I've managed to just max out the sliders. The graphics card is now running at about 600 MHz, and the memory is running at just shy of 800. It's not a massive increase in performance. We are being held back by the amount of memory, but an additional 5 to 6% on a machine like this does help quite a bit. So, let's see what this can do in games. Okay, let's go alphabetical here and start with Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Okay, so in the main menu we're getting about 22 FPS. Our GPU is at 100% usage, but so is our CPU. That's worrying. Okay, if we're getting 22 FPS in the main menu, I'm going to lower the quality to medium. Okay, let's set the quality to medium, because that seems a bit more realistic. Let's drop the texture resolution and the shadow resolution. And we are in game, getting a grand total of 24-ish FPS, 22. Oh, 15. Yikes. I don't think native res is going to happen with Amnesia. Let's drop that resolution a tiny bit to 1200 by 800. Oh, I have to restart the game just to set the resolution. Okay, 30 FPS just by lowering the resolution a bit and dropping down into the 20s. I think this game is going to require a bit of fine-tuning with the settings to try and find something stable, but it can run Amnesia. It's not the most stable frame rate, but it can run Amnesia. I am somewhat impressed. This is one of the newer games I intended to test on this machine. Yes, okay, I'm calling Amnesia new, but the rest of the games I wanted to test are quite a bit older than Amnesia is. So it seems as though this machine can run Amnesia: The Dark Descent. It may need its settings lowered a little bit more to get us above the 21-ish FPS I'm having right now, but that doesn't mean it's unplayable. I'm quite impressed there. Well done, machine. Let's see how it handles Civilization 4. One of the better Civilization games, I should say. Now, let's increase ourselves to the native res, because I'm not sure we're going to be held back by the graphics card here. we're probably going to be held back by the CPU. We will disable anti-aliasing though, it's not really needed. Can we just appreciate that the game is running at 60 FPS? This is impressive. Berlin, we're German, okay. Germany's okay. Let's start a worker, please. Yeah, this is working quite well. Well, I've seen all I needed to see, to be honest. If you want to play Civilization 4 on this machine, you can. I mean, you can play Civilization 4 on just about anything. I remember playing it on integrated graphics on a PC really about this vintage, actually, the first time I ever played it. So if I could play it on integrated graphics, you can definitely play it with a GeForce 8400M. Next up, one of my all-time favourite games, the original Dead Space from 2008. So, it's 1 year newer than this machine. Now, when I played it on a PlayStation 3, which in terms of graphics horsepower isn't too different from the theoretical performance of the GPU in this machine. However, we are severely limited by VRAM and the CPU right now. Like, the PS3 had more VRAM and a much better CPU. Can we run at highest settings? Native res. I'm expecting no. Okay, we have run out of VRAM. We are very much up against our VRAM limit right now. We are only getting 16 FPS as the graphics card is swapping out with the DDR2 memory in our system over PCIe 1, by the way. This GPU is only connected to the CPU through PCIe 1.1. That is a very slow connection. Very much too slow to be swapping out system memory. So let's swap to 1200 by 800 like we did for Amnesia, and see if that improves anything. Though I do expect we will have to lower a setting or two. We are still up against our VRAM limit, but our FPS did go up into the 20s now, which is pretty good. I'm going to lower a few settings that don't matter too much, like anti-aliasing and blur. See if we can get our VRAM usage down. And let's drop shader quality a tad. That has helped. We're up to almost 30 FPS, but we're still swapping out with system memory. Okay. Let's drop shadow resolution. This machine just doesn't have the VRAM. Like, the Windows XP gaming rig I keep around has 512 megs of VRAM, which is more than enough for any Windows XP era game. It's just barely enough for this game at 1080p. I'm not too sure what this game actually needs at minimum. I think it might be 256 meg. We're still right up against that VRAM limit. Oh, wait a second. 30 FPS? Okay, 30 FPS. About medium quality settings, 800p, not too bad. Definitely slower than my Windows XP rig, sadly. I don't think this is a graphics horsepower issue, though, that's holding us back. This is just VRAM. Okay, it's not running all that smoothly, so let's lower a few other settings here. Yeah, it's running much better now. We are definitely pushing our components to the limit, though, because we are reaching 96 degrees on the CPU. And the fan in this thing is definitely running at 100% now. Hey, it's running. Pretty smoothly, actually. despite the fact we are definitely swapping out with system memory. Running the game is running the game at the end of the day. Our CPU is at 98 degrees Celsius though. Maybe this game's a bit too demanding. That being said, we haven't overheated yet. We are just definitely close to it. Okay, my camera is kind of freaking out with focusing on this display, but let's just see if we can run the game. I expect that we can. I highly suspect that we can. Oh wow, that was a really fast loading time. Well, I can't tell what frame rate this is, but it's definitely smooth. Well, Deus Ex is more than playable, and if I could be bothered to go through this full tutorial, I would definitely be able to get into the game and enjoy myself there, so pretty impressive. What about some good old 1996 to 2001 copyright Blizzard Entertainment Diablo? How in God's name is this running at 20 FPS? There is some kind of limitation here. Why? Is this game just designed to run at 20 FPS? I mean, sure. It's working. I'm not going to complain. This game originally came out on the PS1. At least when I played it, it did. So, you don't need an awful lot of horsepower to run this game. What resolution is this, anyway? Probably 640 by 480. Feels like it. It can run Doom 2. I think that's all the proof it really needed to show you guys. What about Dragon Age? This actually might be a bit demanding. Well, would you look at that? 60 FPS? Okay, 40, 50 FPS. That's actually not bad for this game, to be honest. This game is not the easiest to run. And if you run it too well, it will crash and behave very strangely. This game does not like modern systems. Oh dear. Speaking of modern systems, they definitely have more VRAM than we do. Instantly ran out of VRAM when we went outside. Still playable though. Although at these settings it looks a lot like Fable 2. This does look a lot like Fable 2 at these settings. Everything is on high. There doesn't appear to be a motion blur setting. Okay, we're out of VRAM. That being said, we are still getting a playable-ish frame rate, though in Fear you definitely want to be staying above 60. So let's change a few settings here. Okay, we're still up against our VRAM limit. We are getting above 30 FPS occasionally, but yeah, VRAM yet again is holding us back. So let's set it to low. Native res. Okay, low settings native res. Can we handle that? Yes, low settings native res we can definitely handle. We're only getting about 40 odd FPS, and that's not a graphics card limit. We're being held back by our CPU. That's a surprise. $150, 200 FPS in-game? You're kidding. Wow. Yeah, I think we could have raised the settings a little. We're getting 200 FPS in-game. I remember this being a lot harder to run. Yeah, I do. I remember this being a lot harder to run. Maybe when we're outside it'll run worse. Well, it's dropped down to 100 looking at the ocean, but... Well, if you wanted to run Far Cry, I'm pretty sure this machine can handle it. Let's have a look at a little bit of Halo, shall we? 70 FPS? 80 FPS? Now that's a decent bit of performance there. Well, it can definitely run Halo. Yeah. So now let's try a few newer titles. What about Balatro? Should be able to handle Balatro, surely. It's a 2D card game. That can't possibly be too demanding for this system. Oh no, X input 1 is missing from your computer? Windows System 32, let's go hacking around with the Windows, shall we? This is a terrible idea, but hey, System 32, down to the X's, please. Yep, there it is. Copy, paste, rename, X input 1-4. Okay. Oh, I got rid of the dot. Whoops. Dot DLL. Does Balatro work now? Would you look at that? Balatro running on Windows 7. Oh, this is an old version of Balatro, to be honest, but let's play. Default settings, native res. Skip the intro. Skip the explanation. Let's see here. I could go... Let's just go pair. That's a decent opening hand. Oh, let me speed up a few things here. Settings, video. VSync is on, though I don't think at 20 FPS that's going to matter. Graphics, let's disable shadows and pixel art smoothing. That still hasn't helped. Disable the CRT effect. That helped. Anyway, can we please increase speed? Okay, you're just giving me terrible cards at the moment. Can I discard them, please? You see, now I just want an ace. Ooh, Nelly. Well, that wins this hand. So, disabling a few effects, running at the lowest graphical details technically, we are getting more or less a stable 30 FPS in this game. I will take you, and I really should have bought that, to be honest. That would have been much better. Balatro can run on just about anything. I've run it on some fairly low-powered Android devices. The fact that it runs on this PC isn't that impressive, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be impressed. Balatro is a modern-ish game. It doesn't really have any right running on this machine. But it is running. More or less a stable 30 FPS. Not bad, I'll take that. And I'll take my +1 hand size. Thank you. Oh, if only I had a 2 of hearts. Straight flush. That would have been great. Balatro is a really fun game, by the way, if you haven't played it. Let's go 2 pair. There we go. So there's Balatro. What about Beltmatic? Oh no, Beltmatic was unable to start correctly. Error 05. Oh. What does Beltmatic require? Actually, what is this a Unity game? Beltmatic is a DirectX 11 game. Now, technically, this PC doesn't support DirectX 11. This is a DirectX 10 GPU, but it's DirectX 11 compatible up to a point. But yes, this is Unity. I think this might just be incompatible. So no Beltmatic. That's a shame. What about Carrion? Carrion should run, surely. Yeah. 90 FPS. Yeah. 90 FPS, not bad. Well, if you wanted to play Carrion, you definitely can. Though I would probably recommend limiting the FPS to VSync, just for the sake of not overtaxing your system unnecessarily. Carrion can be played. Now for a game I'm fairly certain this PC can't play. Let's try Crab Champions. The following components are required. Yes, I would like to install them. So now, Crab Champions, a game that this PC definitely can't play. Surely. Huh? Wants network access, no thanks. Ah, no! Incompatible GPU! Yep, we need a DirectX 11 GPU, shader model 5. The 8400M, I'm pretty sure, is only shader model 4. Yep, that is correct. The 8400M is only shader model 4, so this graphics card is incompatible with Crab Champions. That is a shame. And so that's it, the Sony VAIO 19-inch PC from 2007. I am very glad to say is fully working after several hours of restoration. There were a few points where I was expecting I would have to completely gut the battery circuitry and put in a lithium-ion cell. Thankfully, because this thing runs on 3.2 volt nominal, you can put a 3.4 volt lithium-ion cell in here and it should work, but I was able to fully restore this keyboard, and if I had the mouse, I would have the original peripherals, minus the IR remote, but you could probably find a universal remote and program it to work with this machine, assuming the drivers for the infrared controls work in Windows. I'm not sure about that. So this Sony VAIO machine, a PCG292M, according to the model number on the back. However, after much Googling, I was able to find an article calling this machine by its correct model number, the LT19U. Now, that model number is specific to the 22-inch version, which this isn't. The 22-inch version obviously has a bigger screen, which is a slightly higher resolution of 1680 by 1050, as well it has a Blu-ray drive rather than a DVD drive. Other than that, the specs are identical. The GPU is still the 8400M 128MB version. It's still the same T7500 Core 2 Duo, still the same 2 gigs of DDR2, and as standard, these would have come with a 320GB hard drive, all for the price of $3,000 US in October of 2007. These machines were expensive. Now, I can't tell you the price of this 19-inch version, which obviously would have been cheaper given it's a smaller screen, smaller components, and no Blu-ray drive, but given that the 22-inch model was $3,000 US and it was directly competing with the iMac of that same generation, now the iMacs of 2006 and 2007 did run Core 2 Duos, so yeah, these were very similar machines. I don't have one of those on hand at this point, but this would have been a direct competitor, and given the price tags, I expect they were competing for the same customers, because iMacs of this generation weren't cheap either. That being said, I think I would have gone with an iMac over this machine. I know, strange, but the thing is, Apple's software optimization is substantially better than Microsoft's. And also, the iMac's got several more years of OS support than this machine would have done. This machine came with Windows Vista. The iMacs of the 2007 and 2008 era would have been able to upgrade all the way to El Capitan, which came out in 2013 if I'm not mistaken. So, quite a bit more up to date. You can install Windows 10 on these machines. I wouldn't recommend it. It would be incredibly slow, even with an SSD. The CPU in here is holding it back. And if I were to deploy this in some fashion, it would definitely be running Linux just for the lighter overhead on the system resources. We only have 3 GB of RAM with a theoretical maximum of 4, though it might be compatible with 8 gigs. DDR2 SODIMMs do go up to 4 gig modules, but those are pretty rare and not every PC is compatible with them. And beside that, this machine only supports SATA 2, the Wi-Fi has stopped working, and despite the fact that the speakers in here are so good, I have better and more efficient machines that can play back music other than this one. So, I have no need to deploy this machine in any fashion. It will be staying in storage for the time being until I do eventually find a use or a buyer for it. But for now, I am very impressed at what this machine could do. I'm very glad that it still works. Like, other than needing some more thermal paste, there was nothing wrong with this machine. It was free and it was fully working. And given the original price tag of this thing, if the 22-inch model was $3,000 US, this was probably $2,200 to $2,300. At a stretch, maybe $2,500. I don't think it would have been too much more expensive than that, considering that they removed the Blu-ray drive, which would have been a substantial cost of this machine in 2007. So, yeah, I got really lucky when this was included with every other machine that I was given a few days ago. And speaking of all those other machines, that's what I'll be working on next. As soon as I'm finished editing this one, let's take a look at that Socket 775 gaming rig I picked up. Considering it has a 9800 GT in there, which is a 512 megabyte graphics card, which is 1 year newer than the GPU in this thing, that should be much more capable of gaming than this beast was. So, I'm excited to see what that machine can do, but before we can get to that, I have to say thank you very much for watching, goodbye, and I'll see you next time.